The Orange Line.
Hey, this is Dr. PhD.
All right, well, I guess we'll start with that. Hey, this is Dr. PhD, back with another episode of The Orange Line. Happy holidays and happy New Year, I guess, everyone.
Is the New Year not a holiday?
I mean, it's just a day. We randomly picked a day. I don't want to get into this on the podcast, but welcome back to The Orange Line. Joining me today is everyone's favorite Penguins fan.
We can just say non-Flyers fans, so then it gets broader.
Everyone's favorite non-Flyers fan.
Yeah.
Brandon. We didn't come up with a name for you, did we? Yeah,
No.
This is Brandon. But I felt like since the year 2018 is coming to an end, it's only fitting for us to take a look at what the Flyers have done within
This year so far.
Yeah,
this season so far.
This season, the 2018-2019 season, because I don't want to go all the way back to the start of the year.
Well, I mean, the end of last year was super exciting and then very depressing at the same time for Flyers fans.
It's
well,
just,
even for the Penguins fans too. So
it's just like how so far this season everything is very exciting, but also very depressing.
I guess welcome to Philadelphia sports.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. But so we're gonna go over the Flyers season so far, ups and downs, what they've done, and possibly what they can improve on. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask you, how are the Penguins doing this year?
This year in total, they've been doing okay.
Well, I mean,
so as of late, they've been doing great. So I think since the middle of November or early December, they've had one hell of a run. Matt Murray has just come back from injury and won 4 or 5 games straight, which he's been struggling. So that's really something to be happy about, because we had Casey DeSmith, no-name backup, actually contending for the first spot. Yeah. So they're doing pretty well right now. They're in a good place in order to start moving forward. The Metro in general is just in a good and it's hard for the Flyers, but I mean, like the top Metro teams have gotten better. They've caught up with the other divisions, and it's hopeful.
Well, that's good at least. I mean, good for the Penguins or whatever. I mean, like, fuck you guys.
Yeah,
but
good for the Penguins and good for the Capitals. Capitals have, I think their last 10, they've had 8 wins, which is just, it's going to be hard to catch them.
Ugh. Well, let's get on to a team that's actually exciting.
You know what? A lot of exciting things have gone on this season.
You're not wrong.
There's that. But if it's, necessarily good, we'll see. To be determined in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. So we kicked things off pretty strong with a 5-2 win against the Vegas Golden Knights in Las Vegas, the runner-up to the Capitals last year.
Yeah, and the big news was so that was a 5-2 win, and was that one at home, or was that... No, that one was in Vegas.
It was in Vegas.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And then, I mean, I know I'm skipping forward a little bit, but once they played Vegas again, it was a tough game. They fought hard. It was only maybe a week later, and I think the end score was 1-0.
It was 1-0. The Vegas Golden Knights were able to take that one.
Which in the beginning of the year, they did not have many one-goal games.
Yeah, that's true. Then that's kind of where all the problems really started for the Flyers. Is just they were not able to score. And when they were able to light up teams.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a 7-4 win against Ottawa. That was the 4th game of the season. But there's a whole lot of 5-2 loss, 8-2 loss, 6-3. We just weren't able to put points up, and they were just getting goals past everyone.
Yeah, well, from the outside looking in, I mean, it's really seemed like goaltending was the issue, because you get such inconsistent results that you don't know whether or not your goalie is going to be hitting it hard that night, or if he's just going to be making every save. So going into it, you get a team that's kind of deflated a little bit because they're not picking up, points when they should be, or they're just getting demoralized by teams.
Yeah.
but they've just never really found at that point in time. They had never found a way in order to just the goalies be good and also the players play well for him, like play well in front of him. So you've had goaltending do well, and then you've had the players play shitty, and then you've had the players play well, and then the goaltending be pretty shitty.
Well, yeah, that was a bit of the story for some of the opening games in October. Is that we had who was it? We had Nuvi, and we had pretty much all of our goalies kind of stand on their head for some games.
Yeah.
With the defense completely falling apart.
I mean, Elliott for a little bit in there.
And then
a little later down the line, but yeah, he was there.
But then we got to a point when the team started playing a bit better, and then the goalies just didn't want to show up to the game, I guess. But
which do you think that's actually in the goaltenders themselves, or do you think that's the goaltending coaching? Because I mean, obviously, and this was a little bit ago, but Michael Neuwirth played really well as a backup, or when he was in contention for the top spot in Washington. And you know what? I'm not really sure how Brian Ellie was doing before he came here. To be honest, I think he was pretty. He was on the Blues, did well, got traded or lost to free agency, and then he did shitty wherever he was at. Yeah. So I guess maybe he's still the same.
I think it could have been the coaching, but realistically, it felt like they didn't want to play because of the team that was in front of them. But as we ended up finding out later in the chronological year, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
as the year went on.
Yeah, as the year went on, we ended up seeing that coaching overall was a very big problem. But that didn't end up happening until late November, early December, when the really big moves ended up happening.
You'd really hope that a coach would be able to at least switch up lines or inspire something. And I guess maybe it's not also it is definitely coaching, but I think there's also a hint of that. I don't think that they have a real leader in the locker room as far as a voice goes. Claude Giroux is great. Mm-hmm. He's got magic. He's got some real soft mitts.
Right.
And he puts up points. But since he's been captain, I think he kind of lost his stranglehold all in the locker room. And, you'd really hope to have guys like Wayne Simmons in there in order to pump it up a little bit. I thought that's why Hextall brought in Christian Folan as a veteran there, veteran presence. And obviously,
oh, yeah. We all love him.
Yeah. Has not gone as, Hextall would have thought. But then again, Hextall's not here anymore. So
that's true.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, I think one of my biggest hot takes is a bit of reverse, in a way, of having a leader in the team. Only because I feel like right now one of my biggest problem players that I see on the ice is Jake Voracek. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing, but it seems like there are nights when he really wants to come out and he wants to play and he wants to show up, and then there are times when he just doesn't care. And on the nights that he doesn't care, you can kind of see and feel that the rest of the team doesn't seem to care. So it seems like, I won't say it's all on him, where like if he's going, all right, we got to win this, then the team's going to win it. But it seems like he is a voice who...
He's toxic, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, he sounds like a toxer. In a way that like he's bringing down the team when he really doesn't try, but when he's fired up, the whole team's fired up, which is part of the consistent inconsistency of this team.
Yeah, but I don't really think he's ever going to be the leader that they need, like a leader.
I don't think so.
I think everybody just feeds off of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I mean, we're going to obviously skip ahead right now to where we are currently, but I think one thing that could be done going into next season is maybe trade someone. I think if we get rid of one of these pieces, I'll say, that's maybe not the biggest part of a line or the biggest part of the locker room, but someone who is a notable name where we can trade him and get a good value from it.
So like a JVR?
A little bit, but we have JVR already. The name that I keep saying, and I know a few of our friends keep saying, is Tarasenko.
Hmm. He allegedly is available.
And so, it realistically, we're only going to be able to find out how things work out until it actually happens.
Yeah.
But I think a shakeup should happen. But it's a good thing that this is kind of the year of shaking things up, especially because of
Comcast wants quick results.
especially
And
because
home,
of
I guess, and Holmgren. We can say him too.
everything that had happened over this season.
Okay. Yeah. So we had a good. There was started off real hot.
Yeah.
Only the first few games.
Well, only the first game because following Vegas, we lost 5-2 to Colorado,
Yeah. Well, Colorado's really good this year.
and then 8-2 to San Jose.
That one. Yeah. Well,
Was
we went to
rough.
that game,
Yeah.
and it got bad real quick.
Yeah, that one was a rough game to watch.
Okay. So started the game, the first game, off really well.
Yeah.
And then hit rocky starts all the way throughout.
I feel like they did it in very Flyers fashion in a way when it's like, all right, this is a team we can kind of get behind, and then immediately everything got halted.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of the way the year has just gone so far. But
Yeah.
okay, so
So
then assumptively, everybody's happy with Hackstall going.
yeah,
Now that details have gone out, everybody's happy with Hackstall going after him being a coach for 3 years, and that's what that's what you're gonna basically say is due to all of the rockiness so far, up
Well,
until Gordon.
yeah, I would say it's that, and you can't put all of the blame on Hextall and Hackstall because to win hockey games you have to have a team that's playing hockey, and regardless of
All
what
60 minutes of hockey.
Yeah, all 60 minutes of hockey. And regardless of whether the coaching system or what was happening away from the game, they still have to go out there, and if they have a drive to win the game, then they should be willing to do whatever to win the game. And so maybe it was a bit of the system. I think it was a bit of the system, but at the same time, you got to play hockey, and they just weren't playing hockey for a full 60 minutes for like a solid 2 months,
Yeah.
which was rough to watch in October, and it ended up just kind of getting very hurty in November.
Yeah, a little depressing there.
Yeah.
But I also think that there was a motivational problem, and there still is. I think that again, I mean, harping on the no voice in the locker room here thing, but they really need to find a way in order to, or they would like to find a way to make changes quick. And Gordon as an interim coach, I guess that's a change.
Right.
But whether or not they're going to find anybody in return for him, I guess in place of him, because Coach Q doesn't sound like he's coming anymore. That was on for a hot second, and then now it is just straight off.
I think that was all just wrapped up in the hype of everyone saying, "Oh, Hackstall's going," and getting rid of him. And
who's the most notable?
Yeah, I think that was just all wrapped into one. I don't think it was 100% done deal that Q was coming here, but I also don't think that going into the end of this season, he's not going to consider coming to Philadelphia. But I don't know the man.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, there's a lot of talent here, and there's at least the organization says they really want to make something of it.
Yeah, and I think, like I've said on this podcast before, and I've said to people who have talked to me about the Flyers before, this team is one with a lot of latent potential, where you have some of these young kids who just still have more to go, but the only way they can get there is by playing and being part of maybe a better system that
and also
nurtures
having somebody
them.
And also having, again, nurturing them, having somebody alongside them in order to kind of help them through it. So like you have, and that's, I don't know, maybe it is nice to have people like JVR because he can kind of show them the ropes as far as continuing to perform.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Drew. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either, but I think,
Maybe that's Cooter. Maybe that's even Voracek. I don't know.
well, I think the way I always saw Giroux is he wasn't a leading captain. He was just like
Lead by example
a lead by example kind
instead
of
of like a
captain.
voice.
So, everything that he does for the team is reflected by the team. So it seems like when he's heated up, he kind of ignites something for the
Yeah.
team, which is not to bring this up because you're a Penguins fan, but it's like in the series against the Penguins when he came out and he was just like, I'm gonna watch this shift and
Yeah, checked
32
Crosby
seconds
and then they
in.
ended up scoring. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's a long ways away from,
well,
from today.
I'm well aware
Yeah.
of that, but that's how he's always been with
Yeah.
this team. Is he goes, all right, something needs to happen, so I'm gonna do my best.
And
to get
I don't
that
think
done.
I've really seen him fired up lately.
Yeah, and that's been the problem.
Okay, so Gordon moving forward. We've hit, we covered the basics. I think we kind of skipped over a lot of it because
Talked about it.
you've had this podcast for a while and
Yes.
you've been able to go over those details. But let's get into Gordon. What do you think?
I think him being on the team is something that could end up being such a good resource for us, only because he has some experience with some of the younger kids, especially when it comes to someone like Carter Hart specifically, because he's worked with them, he's seen how they play, what they like to do, and he has maybe a grasp on what to do going into the future. So far, I've liked the changes that he's made to the lineup, especially on the defensive pairings. Me and our friend Jack went to the Red Wings game where Carter Hart got his first start.
Yep.
And the
First win.
first win, and the defensive pairings were absolutely insane. I'm gonna see if I can look them up now.
Well, I mean, okay, so that could be Gordon, but didn't they also get rid of their defensive
They
coach
did.
as well?
They
'Cause
got
he was
rid of
Hextall's right-hand man.
Yeah, they got rid of him because I don't know if it's just allegation or if it's really true,
Yeah.
but from what it seemed like, everyone was saying that the assistant coach was kind of just keeping an eye on what the team was doing outside of practice and things like that. And
Well, I mean,
then
at
reporting.
this point, do you even know? Is everybody that Hextall hired gone?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not aware of every single person that Hextall hired. If
'Cause I don't-
Ian
I'm-
LaPerriere is part of that, then no.
Yeah, because I'm not aware of. Not that I know of. I don't think anybody that he hired is left. So they basically, I mean, like, kind of wiped the floor a little bit.
Yeah.
Clean slate.
Well, I mean, the slate could be a bit cleaner because of the toothless. I don't want to say stain because that sounds really rude. The toothless.
It's got a little bit of tarnish.
Yeah, that guy. I think he's another person that should be on the chopping block, but I don't really have a say in that.
We can always add those to the once for 2019.
Yeah, that's
Our New
true.
Year's the Flyers New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, put that on there. Get rid of Toothy.
Okay, so for Gordon, you like the defensive pairings up front.
I like
You like his ability to make changes.
and I like how he's giving more time to some of these younger kids because before he came in, Sanheim was one of our better defensemen who was getting, bottom pairing time on ice.
Yeah, especially. I mean, this, and I know this is going into last season, but I mean, even when Manning was getting prime minutes instead of Sanheim, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's that, and those are the kinds of decisions that are immediately apparent once we got rid of Hack. Is some of these kids who were not being given enough time to actually produce what we know they can produce, in favor of veterans who have just like paid their time or something. I want to get to know Hackstall just so I can get in his mind and be like, what were you thinking?
Well, he's got the college system, where you have seniors playing over freshmen just because they have less time in general. Obviously, an NHL is pretty dissimilar in the fact that I mean, yeah, you may have a biological clock, but you still have guys like Matt Cullen playing at 42. But you only do have a certain time period of your life in which you're going to be at your prime.
Yeah.
So I guess that was his thought process. I don't really know. But yeah, I can definitely agree that he was not allowing the younger players to progress. And I think that was, I mean, one, with the pairings, and two, also with the system that he put in place. That might have been Hextall. Who knows? But with the rigid system they had, they obviously weren't getting enough free form in there.
Yeah. And so that was another thing that became apparent when Carter Hart started just actually playing, is that he had a very strong defense in front of him, which I think is very funny because everyone was noting Hackstall as a very defensive coach and his system was very defense heavy, but we saw games where they would let up 8 goals, and we can't blame all 8 of them on the goalie.
Yeah, it's hard in order to get bombarded night after night.
It's another thing that makes me hopeful for this team. I know I've said in the past 2 podcasts, but even though this team is playing like 2 different teams depending on who's in net, it's really nice to see them wanting to protect Carter Hart and how he can play.
See, and we can debate. Maybe we can debate on Carter Hart playing. I feel differently about it.
Yeah,
but I think that Red Wings game was Gordon's first game, and it was Carter Hart's first game. So I think that a lot of the skaters, realize that they could be on the chopping block now. They don't have anybody to blame at that. They didn't have anybody to blame at that point because Hackstall and Hextall were gone. So it's you guys better produce, or there's a possibility you could get shipped out.
Right. Well, I get that, but
regardless, I mean, Hart played well against Detroit.
That's true.
He is, I don't know, I think he's 2-2 right now. He's about to get his 5th start in Carolina, so by the time that this gets out, people will know how his 5th game went. But I think he's got like a 9.17, which is higher than any Philadelphia goaltender at this point.
Right. But I mean, I understand that everyone's kind of playing with a bit more drive because their position on the team is
you really hope so.
Up in the air. But then you have games like when they play the Lightning and lose 6-5 in overtime.
And then also to the Panthers, who they cannot believe that they lost that game in regulation. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was a rough one to watch.
Yeah, okay, but I think they are getting better, and I think that because they've had a lot more close games. So obviously, I think maybe they're in the 5 or 6 games. I think he's 6 games. They've all been 1-goal games. Which before that there might have only been something like 3.
Yeah,
and I think I wouldn't be surprised if maybe 2 of those were overtime losses.
The only one thing I noticed in the Florida game is it seemed like once they got that lead, they didn't care about capitalizing on it or expanding on it. They seemed kind of content to just keep that 1-goal lead and then protect Carter Hart.
Unfortunately, that's something that's pretty common across the NHL in general. I mean, it's not hard. It's not easy in order to combat that complacency.
I don't know. The drive on this team is what's killing me.
Well, hopefully there's Gordon in the locker room, and he's able to kind of critique the players in a way that isn't offensive, but also so it should be he should critique them. It should be critical, right? The idea that he should be able to give them feedback and say, you are not, you are letting this guy go around you defensively. You need to back up a little bit or match his pace better. Right. Something like that. Actually give feedback in which they can act upon. And then maybe then and there, they'll get better from it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And that's why, personally, going into the second half of this season in 2019, that there's a lot more to look forward to than is on the surface because
Well, the
it's-
fans don't have anyone else to blame
yeah, that's
except the players. But I mean, that's coming out a little strong.
yeah, and that's why I think it's a lot better to see, I guess, going forward
Yeah,
is that this team is starting to play, they're starting to produce, and they're starting to be competitive.
And consistent. I mean, 5, 6 1-goal games in a row. I mean, that means
Yeah.
you're right in there.
And so looking at the record and looking at where this team was in 2018, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence. But if you're looking at the past 2 weeks, those 6 games where we kept them to just 1 goal ahead of us or 1 goal behind us, I think it's a good tell of where this team is going to go. And I think come 2019, there's a chance we could end up in the playoffs. I'm hopeful. That's all I've ever been on this podcast.
I think they'd really need to start putting it on pretty soon. I mean, last year they had a 10-game win streak that pulled them out of last place, and then eventually made them to first, and then they dropped back a little bit and got into the wild card. But I think that it is possible, especially since I think the Metro has gotten better for sure. But I think more than anything, the top 3 teams in the Metro have gotten better.
Yes.
So there is room to climb. It's very hard to go down from last place in your division unless you're just going to compete with the Kings or the Coyotes and just try to bomb. There is a lot to be hopeful for.
Well, yes. And so I think come 2019, there can be a few personnel changes. There can be maybe a trade or two, or maybe some lines just start to gel a little bit better. But I think as a whole, we're able to see that this team is moving in a positive direction.
Yeah.
Which it just makes me get back to being excited to watch this team and where they go. Because before it felt like a chore to have to watch games.
Well, last 6 games, they're 3-2-1, so they're even. Basically 3 wins, 3 losses.
Right.
Which is better than the rest of their record so far. I think they're 15-17 and I don't even know how many. 1 maybe?
Something like
More
that.
than 1 for sure. But they're at least staying even at this point.
Right.
It could be worse. Pessimistically, they're in last place.
Yeah.
It's hard in order to make that climb, no matter who you are and no matter who's ahead of you and how much they suck.
That's very true.
And then also, I think that, I guess, not being a Flyers fan, I wish they would have just said that they were going to do not a slow rebuild, because I don't think they should have just, knocked out the foundation. I think they have very skillful players there, but I think they could have at least said that it's not going to be like a super quick turnaround like they anticipate.
Yeah, that was one thing that, I mean,
because it gets your hopes up as a fan. It gets their hopes up, and then which may not even be realistic. So if they don't reach it, then all of a sudden they just start making drastic moves, getting rid of people that maybe they shouldn't have. Maybe they should,
Right.
And again, you said earlier, maybe they should get rid of Voracek.
Well, I think it didn't feel right when they said that they're still looking to make the playoffs and they're still looking to not be a contender, but just be a team that's in the race. Because it just doesn't seem right after 2018, and even though I'm trying to be positive going into next year, I think with where we left off with Hackstall and Hextall, we're on such an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's a deep hill. It's a deep hill to climb.
Yeah, that I think
Deep
it's
hole to climb out of. There we go.
It's going to be hard for us to get to that position. So the best thing that we could probably do is make it as far as we can.
Yeah.
And win as much as we can, but I wouldn't expect. I'm not expecting playoffs out of this team
For this year, at least. I think they can set themselves up nicely for next year. Because the only person that I know of that's the only maybe notable person on the Flyers that is a free agent, I think at the end of this year, is maybe Wayne Simmons.
Yeah, and I think Wayne Simmons is one of those, I don't want to say trimming the fat kind of players, but he's a player that doesn't necessarily need to stay on this team. As much as I like Wayne Simmons and as much as of a good player he is, I think he has a good amount of stock in him, and if
He used to be a
if
big.
Fletcher makes the proper moves and is looking at proper players, I think we can end up getting a decent return on him. And going into next season, depending on whether we keep Gordon or if we actually do get Q or something, I just think,
We'll be able to make some more definitive moves.
yeah, I hate to say this because I've said it for so many years, but next season.
Oh, you know what? I think that's fine because, and again, I am an outsider looking in, but I think that's the right way in order to look at it because there is so much talent on this team, but they really need to find a way in order to gel, become more consistent, find a locker room leader, and then also get a system down. Gordon is preaching something, and you just got to hope that if he is not going to be the next head coach, that system is going to work with whoever comes in next.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to fix all of those problems and make those changes in the next 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
But I think they should do what they can, and all I'm hoping for is a positive record.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean that's really all you can ask for. How many games above 500 you are.
Yeah, that's what I always hope for. Playoffs would be nice, but the way I am as a fan, I don't want to go to the playoffs unless I have a chance of winning the playoffs. That's why I think
Every team in the playoffs has a chance of winning, Pat.
I won't say chance of winning the playoffs, just one round. Which is why I wasn't too hopeful about the Eagles this year, but I think they have a chance against the Bears.
Well, they made it. Yeah. They made it.
I think they have a chance against the Bears. But the Eagles aren't this podcast.
TBD for the green line.
For the green line. But this was the orange line. Thank you for coming on again, Brandon.
Glad to be here.
We are finally on Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Yeah, very exciting. Very, very excited. It's also on SoundCloud. I'm just gonna say that because that's true.
There may be one person.
Yeah. So for all you SoundCloud rappers out there that love the Flyers, give a listen to my podcast.
Maybe even take a sample from it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But thank you for listening to this year's wrap up, I guess. Thank you for listening to the Orange Line. This is the last one of 2018, coming out in 2019. There will be more for the rest of the season. I have been Dr. PhD. If you want to follow me on social media, it's going to be at Dr. PhD, DOCTER PhD. Thanks for joining me, Brandon.
If you'd like to follow me, don't. If you'd like to chime at me down in the comments, sure, go for it.
Yeah, do
I'll
that.
read it.
But this has been the Orange Line. I'll say thank you again, but have a good one. Happy New Year, Brandon.
Happy New Year, Dr. PhD.
Hey, thanks.